Hey lads. You know Amy, the daughter?
Yes, hi.
I'm Acker, good man. Hey, Bonser. Sound, going well? Ladies, going well? How are you? No, don't mind him. It's you. It's your toy.
The assassination of Eamonn Dunne brought to an end the reign of one of Ireland's most enigmatic and intriguing gangland figures. Dunne had emerged seemingly from nowhere to become one of the godfathers of Irish crime.
Rolly Cronin and another man were shot in the head.
A man reputed to be responsible for the death of 17 people. Those who knew him paint a different picture to the cold-blooded killer in the media. So who was the real Eamonn Dunne? And how did a man who had no criminal record emerge fully formed to become Ireland's public enemy number one? Over 5% of Irish homicides are contract killings, and that figure is rising year on year. We've got one of the highest rates of gangland assassination in the developed world. What does that say of this country? To help me explore why Ireland has become a mecca for assassins, I'll be joined by forensic criminologist David Wilson. As a former prison governor and an academic, he has over 30 years' experience of the criminal underworld. Together we have identified 4 types of assassins operating in these islands. Novices, journeymen, dilettantes, and masters. Each has a unique set of characteristics and traits. In this series, we're going to try and delve into the mindset of the hitman and try and explain why Ireland has become one of the contract-killing centres of the planet.
It's very unusual for someone to get from the bottom of an organised crime hierarchy right to the top. And if you're going to get right to the top, you're going to have to possess a number of personal skills and qualities. Above all, you've got to be determined and ruthless. You've got to be prepared to put your needs before everybody else's. But when you get to the top, that's not the end of your journey, because you're always going to be aware that there will be other people who'll be coming to get that top spot off you. And that leads inevitably to paranoia.
Hi David, how are you?
Look, I've got an issue that I'd quite like you to see if you can do some research about. See if you can find any of your police contacts or someone in the media.
Okay.
I really want to know why it is that Eamonn Dunne emerges almost fully formed in 2005 as public enemy number one, but no one knows anything about him prior to that date. Try and find out about his earlier career.
Okay. Well, do some digging and get back to you. Eamonn Dunne did not have a typical criminal background. He was born in 1974 in the working class area of Cabra on Dublin's north side. He came from a respectable family, was clever and hard-working. When he left school in 1993, a world of possibility was open to him. Instead, he chose to move into crime. What's remarkable about Eamonn Dunne was that he was a career drug dealer intent on building an empire. What was extraordinary for me is he also had those soft skills, those diplomatic, ambitious, entrepreneurial skills that made him into a major player in the drug world. But something in his childhood, in his teens, must have given us a hint of the kind of person he was to become. Former Garda detective Brian Sherry remembers the gangster on the rise. Was there anything in his background that suggested that he was going to carry out a lifetime of crime?
No, there was absolutely nothing in his background that would suggest that. Like, he was an ordinary young lad that grew up in Blackhorse Grove, working class family. Father worked, educated up to leaving cert and passed his leaving cert, got married, had young children, and he was like your normal young man, like, I mean, starting out in life. But at the back of it all was this other dark individual that was there, and where it came from is hard to understand, like, because you don't manufacture a person like that. That person is born.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dunne. I'll get you the money.
Don't worry. I know you're good for it. You just need to step up your game a bit, that's all.
My belief is that he realised himself that he had this cold way with him. And he could switch, and he could be a charming individual at the same time. It was like a split personality.
The guards, they got the stash.
I don't want fucking excuses, you prick! I want you to get the money! Do you hear me?
I mean, just how intelligent was he? He finished his leaving cert, but that's not necessarily nuclear scientist material. What made him such a smart and intelligent criminal?
Compare him to his peers. They were getting into trouble with the guard leaders. They're being arrested for minor crimes and minor offences and serving prison time. At an early age, or an early stage, Dunne realised that's not the future. That's not where the future lies for him. His future lay in the bigger picture.
When Dunne began his career in the 1990s, the Celtic Tiger was just beginning, and the clubbing culture associated with the boom brought a new recreational drug scene into the country. Dunne took advantage of this new demand for social narcotics such as ecstasy, speed and cocaine. As his business grew, he partnered with a career criminal and major drug dealer on the north side of Dublin, Martin Marlowe Hyland. How did he first come across Marlowe Hyland?
Well, himself and Marlowe were friends for years. Eamonn would have been considered the brains. Marlowe was certainly the brawn. Never known to back off or never known to refuse. If they're asked to do a punishment beating or something like that, they went at it with gusto, as they say.
While I piece together a story that will help me to explain why Eamonn Dunne became such a feared gangland figure, David is trying to get inside the mind of Dunne to understand why he would choose a life of crime and violence.
Eamonn Dunne first came to the attention of the Gardaí would have been back in the late 90s. Eamonn was driving his car along Glasnevin Avenue heading towards Finglas.
Fuck's sake! Why did you take a risk? You won't be able to fly under the radar now.
Shut the fuck up. Do you hear me?
Evening, guard. What's the story?
What's your licence, please? Step out of the car, please, Mr. Dunne. Open that boot, will you?
Just having a bit of fun, that's all. It's his birthday.
Hands on the car, please. Eamonn Dunne, I'm arresting you under suspicion of false imprisonment.
So was he convicted for that man in the boot incident?
Many a criminal has been rescued by the guards and has refused to cooperate because of this unweird, this closed mouth syndrome. You instill fear into people so that they won't talk. And that's it. They won't talk because they're afraid of the consequences.
You don't have to say anything you do say.
Dunne was now firmly on the radar of the Garda Síochána. But other gangland figures were suddenly also becoming interested in the enigmatic criminal. For nearly a decade, Eamonn Dunne was able to hide his activities from the police. But when Gardaí carried out a chance stop and search of his car, he suddenly became firmly fixed in the sights of the authorities. How did his career develop from there? It really shot upwards in a very violent way.
He would have been brought under the wing of Marlow Highland and brought in as an enforcer.
Alan Toll was Eamonn Dunne's barrister. He paints a very different picture of Dunne to the one described by the authorities.
There are usually pre-convictions, previous criminal histories that one can look back to. But as far as Eamonn Dunne's concerned, he seems to emerge out of nowhere, fully formed as Ireland's public enemy number one. How do you explain that?
I think what was the real dynamic in relation to Eamonn Dunne was that he was aligned with two people in particular. He was aligned not necessarily in person but by the media with Marlow Highland 1 and with a guy called Eamon Kelly 2.
How are you, Mr. Kelly? Meet Eamon, the Don Dunne.
So this is the infamous Eamonn Dunne. Hey, Mr. Kelly. Do you want a drink? Cheers.
Kelly was the one who got the longest sentence for the importation of cocaine. I think he got 14 years, which was a horrendous sentence. I never saw Eamon Kelly groom Eamonn Dunne in any particular way. But then again, I didn't see them all day, every day, so I don't know what went on. But Eamon Kelly had his own reputation.
Hi David, how are you?
You know, I think we've got a really interesting case study in Eamonn Dunne because we very rarely get to see somebody move up the ranks.
What I find extraordinary is the unusual mix between the callous, cold executioner and somebody who clearly had the diplomatic skills of a gangland negotiator. I mean, how does that add up?
So maybe what we need to do is work out how he was able to become that successful as a criminal undertaker.
By 2005, Dunne was a senior figure in Dublin's criminal underworld. However, he'd not been implicated in any gangland murders. That changed in August of that year when convicted drug dealer Andrew Dillon disappeared in North County Dublin. The last person Dillon was seen with was Eamonn Dunne.
All right, Chico.
All right, Aaron.
Don't look so worried. It's all forgotten. Do you want some grub?
All right.
Hey.
Nicola Tallant was one of the journalists who covered Dunne's rise up the criminal ladder.
Marlowe Hyland himself was a notoriously violent character, so to work for him you had to show a total disregard for life or for anything. It was just all about the power, the money and the drugs.
We've got a little job for you.
Eamonn Dunne was chosen for that very reason, that he was an incredibly violent person. He was willing to do absolutely anything.
I'm sorry, please.
And I'm not 100% sure it was money that motivated him. In some ways you think with Eamonn Dunne that it was the violence and the power that motivated him rather than actual cash.
Please.
After Andrew Dillon was murdered, his body was unceremoniously dumped on farmland in North Dublin.
It was in this ditch that the body of Andrew Dillon was found, and I wanted to come here to see this deposition site because all the criminal intelligence that we have suggests that Andrew Dillon was in fact shot by Eamonn Dunne. Eamonn Dunne may have ordered other hits, but this was the only hit, according to the Gardaí, that Dunne committed himself. And so I wanted to see the deposition site to try and form some picture of the kind of criminal undertaker that Eamonn Dunne was. And what can we tell from this? Well, the first is that there's no forensic evidence. There was no forensic evidence on the body of Andrew Dillon, on the blindfold that he had around his head, or on the rope that tied his hands behind his back. And therefore that does take some degree of forensic awareness to understand that if there was forensic evidence, the culprit would likely be found. The second thing is, Andrew's body was found by a dog walker some 48 hours after the body had been disposed of. Again, that suggests a degree of planning. And look at the area. We're in a very rural area. If some hits are chosen, if the sites of some hits are chosen to make a very public statement, this isn't one of them. This statement is meant to suggest this man is capable of planning, is forensically aware. This is a statement saying, perhaps I can move up the ladder of the criminal network that I'm part of. I want to move from middle management to senior management, if you like. And so in that sense, this crime scene tells us that Eamonn Dunne was meticulous, planned, and actually was capable of murder.
Before 2005, Eamonn Dunne was practically invisible to Dublin gangland and to the Irish authorities. But within 2 years, he was standing shoulder to shoulder with the giants of the Irish underworld. Who was responsible for his rise to infamy? And was Eamon Kelly the key talent spotter who was determined to unlock Dunne's skills as a murderer and gangster? So far, Hyland and Dunne's crimes had stayed within the confines of Dublin's gangland. But that would all change with the murder of Baiba Salute.
She was a mother of two who had problems with the custody of her children. She was married to a Lebanese man called Hassan Hassan, who was in prison at the time.
We had actually got him down in Westmead there for dismantling stolen cars, but he was also doing a sentence for kidnapping his children and taking them out of the country and that. And Baiba had the children back at that particular time.
According to the police, Baiba became the target of a group of imprisoned gangsters. In late 2006, the gang asked Dunne's boss Marlo Hyland to help organise a hit on Baiba.
Is this a good idea, Marlo?
She was shot dead and her two young children upstairs in their beds. Horrifying murder, and she was an absolute innocent victim. She had nothing to do with crime.
A massive Garda investigation was launched and several arrests were made, but no one has ever been charged with her killing.
The murder of Baiba Salute turned the heat up on Marlo Hyland. The Gardaí launched Operation Oak, targeting Hyland and his gang. Before long, many of his associates were in prison or awaiting trial.
I liked Eamonn. He was a nice chap. He wasn't those things that he is being painted by others to be. Did he deserve the level of treatment that he got? No, I mean, he didn't. Eamonn Dunne was an accused person. He was never a convicted person. And just because you're accused, it's not axiomatic that you're guilty of anything.
Despite the pressure from the police and the constant reporting by the media, Dunne was never charged for any of the murders he was accused of orchestrating. In fact, he was often seen as a facilitator and peacemaker in North Dublin.
You know, sometimes when communities get abandoned by the state, by the formal agents of law and order, it doesn't mean to say those communities themselves don't want law and order. They're not socially disorganized, they're merely differently organized. And sometimes those communities will look to gangsters to provide them with a sense of security. They'll look to them to provide order in the environment in which those people have to live their lives.
A policeman that I knew came to me and said, look, you know Eamonn Dunne. Things in Finglas had gotten very much out of control. And he said, can you help?
I will not have a war. Do you understand me? Yeah.
Is he to be thanked for what he did that day? Yeah, he deserved thanks for that because he was civically minded.
Now, unless you're living in a cartoon world, no one is ever always totally evil or totally good. Every human being has strange and different and colourful dimensions to their lives that might seem odd and at odds with each other.
It's my birthday next week. Will you come over for dinner?
Well, yeah.
I've met serial killers who are very kind to their mothers. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think Alan's looking for proof beyond reasonable doubt. I don't think we need to not judge Eamonn Dunne simply because there is no proof beyond reasonable doubt. There's just too much other kinds of information which identify him as being at the heart of organised crime.
And she wanted me to study, but...
Yeah, and she told you to stay in.
Yeah, but it was different because it was Melissa's birthday party and I could not go there.
Marlowe Hyland was a marked man. Under increasing pressure from the police, his criminal empire was floundering, and fellow gangsters were asking if he was a snitch.
Marlowe was suspected by Dunne of having given information to the Gardaí about a large consignment of drugs, and went on the run basically, knowing that there was going to be no sympathy or no pity for him.
Make it quick, no messing around.
Yes, boss.
Sorry, Marlowe.
Do you really want to do this? After all, he was your friend.
How'd it go?
It's done, but there was a complication.
Fuck's sake!
Another score is settled in the murky, drug-fuelled underworld as crime boss
Marlowe Hyland lived by the sword, and to die by the same means would not have been unexpected. However, the brutal murder of 20-year-old apprentice plumber Anthony Campbell signified a new low in the history of Irish crime. With his killing, the murderers had shown they had little regard for the lives of the innocent.
Had to be done, Eamonn. Nothing we could do about it.
I know. It's just business.
Eamonn Dunne was always the apprentice godfather, and it was only a matter of time before he'd take his opportunity to bring down his old associate Martin Hyland and finally take control of the Dublin drug scene. And he didn't care if innocents like Anthony Campbell became victims, casualties of his unique drug war. And over the next 5 years there'd be many more victims, innocent and otherwise.
After that, then there was a consolidation of his power, and that meant an awful lot of youngsters who had done no more than a few euro for drugs were whacked by Eamonn Dunne's gang.
Forensic experts spent the day gathering evidence following the fatal shooting of 27-year-old John Daly.
Michael Rowley Cronin and another man were shot in the head while they sat in a black Volvo.
Michael Murray had survived previous attempts.
After Anthony Campbell and Marlowe Hyland were murdered, Dunne was accused of going on a killing spree.
Eamonn Dunne killed with a compunction, and he killed people who normally a few slaps or something like that would have been sufficient, but that wasn't his style. And he took them on and he took them out. Ganglanders in general in Dublin City feared Eamonn Dunne, feared him personally because they were unsure am I his next target, but also feared him because of the heat he was bringing down on them with the Gardaí, with his activities.
Emma Kelly is a criminologist who has studied crime and policing in Ireland and who understands Eamonn Dunne's motivation.
How is Eamonn Dunne able to remain so far off the police's radar for such a long period of time?
If you think about organised crime in terms of a business, because essentially that's what it is illegal business, and I turn to you and I ask you, name one of the CEOs of a multinational corporation, you probably wouldn't be able to do that. It's the same rule that applies to the criminal underworld. It is a faceless place to be unless a criminal chooses to lose the anonymity of that industry.
Emma, some people would argue that Eamonn Dunne was never convicted of any violent crime. Should we accept the narrative, therefore, that he was clean in terms of that kind of offending?
Well, in terms of conviction, it's a fact. You know, he was only ever convicted once. However, that doesn't necessarily mean he did or didn't commit these crimes. You get a conviction on the basis of sound evidence, so what was perhaps lacking in those cases was sound evidence. However, in terms of the fact that he was actually assassinated by his own people, would allude to the fact that perhaps actually he was committing these crimes and they were spiralling out of control. And what that did was it put a limelight on the criminal underworld.
Dunne's somebody who uses the law to his own advantage. He'll fight court cases, he'll sue journalists. Is this a kind of new phenomenon for an Irish offender?
No, it's actually a well-trodden path for criminals, especially in Ireland. So if you look at the 90s again, Martin Cahill, who was one of the most notorious criminals Ireland ever produced, very often practiced law to defend himself. I suppose one could say he was essentially sticking two fingers up at the judicial system and having a laugh at their expense.
With Marlow Hyland dead, Eamonn Dunne was now public enemy number one. David connects with barrister Alan Toll to try and understand Dunne's state of mind in the aftermath of the murder of Marlow Hyland.
Some of the things that were written about Eamonn were so far removed from reality as to be disproportionately stupid. He went to the High Court and sought to compel the state to prosecute him for the murders he was alleged to have committed. You know, he had these allegations hanging over him. He also had a target on his head.
Alan, do you believe he shot and killed anyone?
I don't think he had that ability. I genuinely don't. I know others I've met certainly did, without question. I mean, 17 dead people is a lot of dead people, no matter how you do the maths, isn't it?
As his notoriety grew, Dunne came under increasing pressure from both the press and the authorities.
There's Dunne. Let's see what little tow rag is up to today, shall we? This harassment card, you know that? You've no unexpected passengers in the boot now, Eamonn, have you? Get out, you know the truth.
I've your number. I'm reporting you to the Ombudsman.
Go ahead. Struggling to keep it up, Eamonn?
With all due respect, Garda, fuck off.
Anyway.
He seemed to have an addiction, in a way, to violence and to killing, in the same way he seemed to have had an addiction to sex. He was dangerously in relationships with the women of well-known criminals. There was two women in the North Inner City he paid for boob jobs for. You know, he lived this very chaotic, dangerous life, and it does seem that that was an addiction in the same way the violence was.
He was conscious, of threats made against him from various criminals, friends of people that he had arranged for their murder and that type of thing. They were threatening to get him, and he would then strike back at them and take them out. He would take anyone who he considered a threat to his life out. He was known to be wearing a bulletproof vest. He was known to sleep in different homes and houses and flats, apartments, every night of the week. He wasn't staying at home. They always fear that this person is there behind them waiting to shoot them.
Dunne was now a dead man walking. His actions were bringing extra heat on the godfathers of Irish crime. It was inevitable that a contract would be taken out on his life. By 2010, Dunne's killing spree had brought too much attention on Ireland's crime bosses. Profits were down and Dunne's behaviour was seen as both reckless and a threat to Dublin's drug trade.
Eamonn became what was known as a liability because of what he was involved in, his paranoia, killing people and all that sort of stuff. So he was then, like his previous mentor, Marlow Hyland, he was expendable.
In the end, the gangster who mentored him ultimately
betrayed him. Eamonn Kelly.
Our mutual friends becoming a liability.
I understand.
It's not good for business, you know what I mean? He'll have to be dealt with.
It's just the way it is.
Alan, can you paint me a picture of what Eamonn was like in those last few weeks leading up to his death?
Oh, he knew he was going to be killed. There was no question about it. I mean, there was an inevitability about it. It was just a question of when. And I think he got to a point, I base this on my own observations of him and what I was told, where he seems to have given up. He did discuss it with me. Would I do certain things for him after he was dead? Because he always imagined that he would be. It was very sad, no matter what. The reality was going to result in him being shot.
Eamonn Dunne did organise his funeral arrangements just weeks before he was shot. Frankly, this is a world where dogs eat dogs. And the graveyard behind me, I'm sure, is filled with young men who, because of that dog-eat-dog world, have lost their lives very quickly.
The hitmen in question, who had carried out quite a lot of reconnaissance on him, they'd watched him. Because he was so paranoid, he tended not to do anything in routine or routinely. So they watched him and they saw him visiting different women's houses, sometimes up to 4 of them a day. He was staying in different places. There was nothing really that they could catch him in the morning and leaving at a certain time. So it was becoming a little bit frustrating for them. And then they got word that he was going to this birthday party in a pub, and they decided that the hit was on.
Why do you think he was so vulnerable and exposed on that night at that time?
Familiarity breeds contempt. Like, I mean, he was in his own local.
Hey lads, you know Amy the daughter?
Yes, sorry, hi.
I'm back here, good man. Hey, Bouncer. Sound pretty well. Ladies, well. How are you?
She's a sundress. How are you keeping? I'm sitting in a while.
Why do you think this location proved so effective, and is there any significance to the timing of the hit?
You're right on the border between Mountjoy Garda district and the Cabrera Garda district, so you're equidistant from both Garda stations. Take the time then, 10 o'clock, you have a change of shift of the guards, so the likelihood of having a good amount of Gardaí available to respond immediately, both armed or uniformed, would have been very limited.
Just a couple of signing in for the lads and whatever the girls are having, all right? Sure. On board.
Oh, and point 7 up as well, guys.
I find it strange that his back was to the door. Why was that?
Most criminals that drink in bars and that would always sit with their back to the wall, facing the door, so that they can see who's coming in and going. Unfortunately, on this occasion, I think Eamonn had actually stood up, whether it was by accident or by design or whatever like that. The seat available to him then was with his back to the door.
Imagine with me this space on the 23rd of April 2010. The pub is filled with people. There's a birthday party in full swing. A car has just pulled up outside the door. There are 3 men in the car. The driver stays in the car and 2 men get out.
Put your hand in your pocket, would you? Yeah, unbelievable. Huh? Don't mind him. You.
The first gunman stays by the door. The second gunman walks through the bar to find his target. He knows where he's sitting because there's been a spotter in the pub. That target is Eamonn Dunne. Eamonn Dunne is sitting about here. He's just ordered a round of drinks. A bar boy delivers the drinks. The gunman fires 2 bullets. They hit Eamonn Dunne. He struggles to his feet. He grabs hold of the bar boy almost as a human shield. Fucker! In the melee, the bar boy gets pushed to one side, and the gunman comes up behind Eamonn Dunne. He then leaves by the fire escape and joins up with his colleagues. Bang, 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 bang. This is all over in 30 seconds. The gunmen leave, and poor Eamonn Dunne remains dead on the floor.
Dad! They shot my dad! Somebody help us! Somebody please! My dad!
Come on!
Dad, my dad! Don't run! Ah! Help!
Clearly it was a professionally organised hit, but there were 12 shots fired. Why was that?
It was probably the message that assassins were sending out. And they were sending out the message that he was a man who thought he ruled Dublin, that we all lived in fear of. This is what happened.
There was no one there who stood up to the mark to try and revenge his murder or anything like that. I think it was generally accepted, you know, with a certain degree of relief, actually, amongst the criminals, that he was gone.
You and I have met people that we would label as evil.
Absolutely.
Was Eamonn Dunne evil?
Certainly not. And did he have that capacity? I don't believe he did. I know others I've met certainly did, without question. I've met many over the years, and without hesitation, without equivocation, they would pull a trigger in a heartbeat and not care about the consequences. But Eamonn wasn't that person.
David, I think you'll agree that Eamonn Dunne is one of the most extraordinary cases we've come across.
Dunne fits perfectly that Churchill statement about Russia. He is a riddle within a mystery, trapped within an enigma. Is he Ireland's public enemy number one, or is he a media creation?
Well, I don't think anybody would have enjoyed the notoriety of that more than Eamonn Dunne himself, and I'm quite sure that he certainly lit some of those flames and was the architect of that image himself. But there's no doubt that looking into his background, you think, you know, how is it possible that a man from apparently sober suburban background becomes this public enemy number one?
And one of the people that I think is really important in creating this organised criminal career for Dunne, and something we haven't really discussed to any great length, is Eamon Kelly.
He saw three things. He saw the aggression, he saw a certain degree of professionalism, but he also saw somebody in the management role in this crime Inc. that he was part of.
We only have intelligence about him actually taking a hit on one particular individual, Andrew Dillon. I don't think we can fit him into our typology. I think we're dealing with a very different type of offender when we talk about Eamonn Dunne, don't you?
We can certainly say he was a commissioner of hits, an architect of them. But I do know, to elevate yourself into any criminal gang, you must have blood on your hands. Like the Gardaí believe, he certainly pulled the trigger.
From the 9-1, switch that over, that's the young blonde. I was at the West Coast, now I'm in the East Coast. Saw you when